Hello and welcome to ET Studios HRConnect in association with ETHR World. I'm your host Himanshi Tiwari. Now in this episode of HRConnect series, we're going to dive deep into the conversations of diversity, equity and inclusion and how technology can actually help in making better decisions when it comes to DEI and can act as a better driving force for such conversations at workplace. We are joined in by two distinguished panelists, Sandeep Girotra, CHRO DCM Shriram and Sushant Dwivedy, Managing Director for India and Philippines at ACHL. Thank you gentlemen for joining us in today. It's a pleasure to have you both here.
Pleasure.
So, Sushant, let's start with you. Why is it important to talk about DEI at workplace? I mean, we are having this conversation since years now. Why this conversation is still relevant? Are we not still there today? And is there a need to have more such conversations?
Let me go ahead and call out. I think there is a significant amount of progress which has definitely been made. But has it been limited? Yes, it is still limited, and there's a lot more that can go ahead and happen. So it's all the more prudent that organizations who have started talking about it start implementing and taking steps to be able to go ahead and extend it further. There are positive benefits for the organization, and we have data which goes and calls out if you have a very diverse team. A diverse team is able to offer up to 25% better performance in comparison to a non-diverse team. That's one of the data points which comes out. And then externally, people want to go ahead and look at organizations also which are having DEI and are DEI sensitive. There's again another number, 76%, if I know right, of job seekers are looking at organizations which have better DEI talk, at least going in and happening, and have actions going in and reflecting in what they're going in and doing. So it is definitely an important area.
70% is a huge number.
Oh, absolutely.
Yes. Now, let's get you in, Sandeep. So why not we start by understanding what is diversity, equity and inclusion and what's the difference between these three terms?
Well, diversity, equity, inclusion, as the name suggests, diversity is about getting a workforce which is diverse, and it's not only about gender, it's about everything else that comes into it. So getting a diverse workforce is what diversity is all about. Equity is when you have people in, how do you manage them equitably? How do you give them an environment which is equal and treat them equal? And then finally, which is the important leg of these three pieces, is inclusion. Because unless you have inclusive environment, whatever amount of diversity that you may have in terms of number, or you may have equity, equitable policies and all that, but if you're not inclusive enough, it's all going to fall flat in the face. That's the reason why DEI are now being called in the same breath and has significance all over.
Yeah. So where do Indian corporates stand at this point? Because as he was answering in the question to him was also about how this conversation has been going on since years now, but still we are talking about it, right? And still things are not right. So where do you see Indian corporates standing at this point in terms of DEI?
Look, again, I think first of all, there's never going to be an end to this journey. It's always going to continue because there are going to be differences in the society. As long as the society, as long as we have a society which has differences and different aspects of people living in there, you will have diversity. And there's nothing wrong in it. Actually, it's good, because you have more diversity, more ideas, more different ways of doing things emerge. DEI as a concept, I would say, of the last 30 years of my experience has picked up in the last 15 years or so, 20 years. And really picked up steam in the last 7, 8, 10 years. I think a lot of companies, multinationals obviously started talking about it earlier than Indian companies, but Indian companies have really caught up and are focused on doing something about DEI. There are companies that I know have made it a mandate that they have to be senior leaders when they get appointed. The first right of approval or rejection would go to a women candidate. But that's one. However, I see going forward as a business, it would become a part of sustainability. It would become a part of a strategic business imperative. That's going to be, how do you make your business sustainable? And sustainability is not only about environment, safety, and all that stuff. It's going to be, how do you make your organization sustainable? Do you have the right talent to make it sustainable? And we've experienced companies which have gone down the tube because they didn't have a sustainable talent pool. And diversity ensures that you have that.
All right. But there is this one concern when we talk about diversity. And as you rightly said, that the differences will always be there, right? And hence the conversations will always be there. But one thing about DEI is compromising with meritocracy, which all people feel, happens sometimes. So do you feel that it's a concern still for organizations with technologies coming in, or it's none of our concern?
Look, it's real. I wouldn't say it's not a concern. I mean, it's real. I wouldn't call it as a concern because the moment you make a imperative as a goal, then people start running towards that goal, and people start, when they start in the corporate world, when they start running towards a goal, they metricize everything. So HR would look at, okay, I need to hire those many people, X percentage of my workforce has to be women, and let's take an example, women here, and so on and so forth. Then everybody is kind of looking at the numbers and trying to. Now, it is unfortunate, but it is happening because in the want of numbers, you're going to compromise somewhere. Having said that, those organizations that have adopted the policy wherein everything being equal, then you give an opportunity to a diverse candidate, I think are the ones who have sustained it for a long period of time. Finally, it's all about sustainability. So I think that is important. And then technology plays an extremely important role in ensuring that you are not compromising on the meritocracy, and also not only at the time of hiring, but also while you're there in the system, your entire career progression and all that works around an ecosystem which is equal for everybody. And remember, we said that diversity, equity, and inclusion, they're all part, and equity is equally an important part of the three-pillar race.
Of course. Let's get you in as well, Sushant. So how do you see technology is kind of eliminating such concerns like meritocracy, and how do you explain it to our viewers on detail how technology can be a driving force for organizations when it comes to DEI?
Very good point. So let me take two areas and look to be able to go ahead and call out when we're talking about leveraging technology. Technology we call out as a great unifying factor for all of us, right? So let's take the domain of assessments as one of the areas. Okay, assessments, if they are built well, have been validated, have been standardized, one of the important elements which a lot of times goes and gets missed is to actually check out for an adverse impact. So there are organizations who go ahead and use assessments, and when they're going in and looking up the technical manuals of those organizations' assessments which they're going in and evaluating, they should definitely go ahead and check up, hey, is there any adverse impact which is going to go ahead and get created by me bringing in that assessment? Is there going to be a gender bias? Is there going to be an age bias, or any of that which could possibly go ahead and creep in by placing that assessment? When you're going ahead and having proper job descriptions in, the big area which we call out from an HR domain always is, hey, go competency, competency, competency. Does the person have the competency to go ahead and deliver, competency or skill to go ahead and deliver on the job that they need to go ahead and deliver on? Now, let me take the area of interviewing. Yeah, we're calling out video interviewing as a tool today, right? And you're having automated video interviewing. You're having the usage of AI and machine learning, which is going in and coming in. I'll possibly take up AI and machine learning at a little later. Let me talk about the classical video interviewing, which we go ahead and do. You and I sitting together, one interviewing the other. Okay. The focus which had been there was on the candidate being interviewed. But now, because of COVID, what's going to happen? You're having video interviews so much more. What about the interviewer? So you're able to analyze the interviewer, and today you're having data back to be able to provide guidance to the interviewer. What are the steps that they need to follow through to do a good competency-based interview? At the same time, you're able to go ahead and ensure, if you're having corporate policies which are very well defined, that, hey, these are the kind of questions you should not be asking. We call it out, possibly train managers in terms of, hey, go ahead and ensure that you're open, you're having the right kind of conversations, not asking the wrong kind of questions. But here you're able to enforce if somebody is going and repeating it, you can go ahead and counsel them, coach them, which when it was happening in a closed room, you did not have an opportunity to. So technology is definitely bringing in that element of convergence by being able to ensure that we're able to bring in the right talent in a unbiased fashion and providing the tools. Those tools were not available earlier. That's the way I would call it.
Yeah, but talking about biases, unconscious bias is the biggest stumbling block when it comes to hiring candidates or also promoting employees at some level, right? And I'll circle back to this on how technology can kind of mitigate such issue. But let's get you in on what kinds of unconscious biases have you seen throughout your careers?
Oh, God. Look, I think there are many, many of them. Unconscious bias, if I start writing a book, it probably would be a 500-page book. But that's an important one. I mean, I don't want to spend time listing down all those, but it's an important factor. See, everything else can go down the tube. You can hire, you can promote, but if it is coming with a baggage, and that baggage is that undercurrent and unconscious bias that people may have, again, it's going to fall flat on its face and not sustainable. The biggest unconscious bias is that why do we need it? What's the benefit? And people who ask me this question, I have a very simple answer to that. That let's take again gender. That you are only working with a 50% workforce. You're just not using the balance 50%. So just imagine if you start looking at the data, and one of the pieces that we will at some point in time talk about the data and the use of data, when you start looking at the data, if you go down to productive workforce, first of all, if you're not gender specific, then you're talking about removing 50% of the workforce, balance 50%. Out of that 50%, what's your productivity level? I mean, today I was listening to Nandan Nilekani, who talked about the recent comment that the ex-founder of Infosys made about 70%, 70 hours of working and all that. And his point was, look, the choice is yours, what you want to do. And really, our productivity levels in India are probably one of the lowest. So you have 50% population not working, balance 50%, very, very low productivity. How would you sustain, how would you build a business organization? So that bias itself has to be broken. And then there are multiple other biases. Let's not list them all, but that's the biggest elephant in the room. Yeah. And that's what companies are tackling right now.
Yeah. But talking about sustainability, you have talked so much about it, but do you think we can relate DEI to profitability at some level?
Oh yeah, absolutely, 101%. I mean, as he rightly said earlier, look, it's your ability to attract and retain talent. More you're able to attract and finally you're able to retain them, better it is. It's going to affect your profitability and the balance sheet in any which ways. Look, people have and the companies have money. So finances is not a problem. It used to be a problem till about 10, 15, 20 years ago. But capital is not an issue now. What is an issue is talent. Yeah. The dearth of talent, I mean, we keep coming up, HR is a fantastic community, we keep coming up with new terms, but the dearth of talent is what's going to create that issue. So if we don't attract and retain people, I think it's going to straight away affect our balance sheet, obviously the business performance. And the second piece, which is equally important, is that if you are able to attract and retain, still if you do not create an environment which people seek to come and work for. A lot of people now want to work for a purpose, not for a company. And that purpose you got to define. A lot of companies are looking at sustainability, and DEI as a part of that purpose is what they're going and highlighting.
Basically involving it in their EVPs now.
Absolutely,
right?
absolutely. I work for a company that has equal opportunity for everybody is much attractive an EVP than that I am the highest paymaster in the industry. So from that point of view, I think things are changing.
Yeah, that's an interesting viewpoint. Sushant, let's get you in and start from where we left. How technology here, when we talk about unconscious bias, can mitigate such biases, and we can have better hiring decisions, and also while we promote employees to next levels in the company.
Very good point. Let me take the point of assessments itself. We go ahead and have cut scores defined. Once you're having a cut score defined, being able to define that cut score in a scientific fashion is what is important. If you have defined that scientifically, that, hey, that's the level of skill and competency which is sufficient for me for doing and executing on that role, then, and I'm able to ensure that there are equal representation of diverse candidates being able to go through that, you're able to go ahead and remove a level of bias, which at the screening process itself, you may be going ahead and bringing in by putting in a human over there. Yeah. So that's one way. The second, in terms of being able to use it as a training tool, like when we spoke about the interview, what used to go ahead and happen in that closed room was between the interviewer and the interviewee. And after that, the recruiter or the hiring manager would be chasing each other up. Hey, did the offer go out? Hey, did you like the candidate? And so on and so forth. Today, in terms of if you're having the interviewing platform available with you, you're able to go ahead and give direction. You're able to provide a supporting tool to the interviewer. That's number one. Second, you're able to review that and be able to provide feedback in a much more structured fashion. So we've had organizations who've gone ahead and used interviewing tool, being able to go ahead and deliver training back. Okay, these are the people, great interviewers. Yeah. These are the people who need to be trained up about this. I'll take a basic area. We expect candidates to be in on time. Yeah. Do we check whether our interviewers are joining in on time? Very basic. Okay. Candidate, switch on your camera. Are my interviewers switching on their camera? Yeah, so it's from a basic etiquette standpoint. And these are feedback which are going back. People are posting it on Glassdoor, hey, talking about the company brand. Okay, that person was rude, and so on and so forth. And you're having those kind of information openly available and getting talked about. So if you're building up candidate engagement, you want to go ahead and have a good engagement brand, employer brand, you definitely need to go ahead and bring in technology in over there.
No, that's a great point, Sushant. You were also talking about AI and how new AI elements have now come into the market, and companies are extensively using it now, or trying to use it at least, because when it comes to AI, I'm sure we are at the nascent stage only. But in the future, we are, the future looks promising at least. But do you think even AI is biased?
So let me go ahead and call out a very, very good point that you went ahead and called out over here. As an organization, we've been having AI-based assessments for over 10 years right now, over a decade right now. SWR, which was the spoken language assessment, has been using AI. Written language assessment, that's been using AI. Our video interviewing platform uses AI. Our coding simulation goes and uses AI. Now, you have the AI, but you need to go ahead and do the adverse impact study. If you do the adverse impact study and you're able to see that the data is holding up, you can go ahead and carry on. I'll take a typical example over here. Assume the two of us were to go ahead and rate you on your interviewing skill. The max correlation we'll be able to hit is 0.8. Yeah. Okay. On most of the elements that I'm picking up as on SWR, like fluency, pronunciation, etc., I'm able to provide a correlation greater than 0.8. So the machine is able to go ahead and do that, and you have that scientifically proven. Similarly, from an adverse impact, okay, this accent is going ahead and getting dinged, or so on and so forth. If accent is important, you want to measure it, that's a different thing. But if the job does not require it, why should you be dinging the person? Yeah. So it's a question of being able to bring in ethical use of AI, and that's the most important part of it. How do I measure it, and am I bringing in the right tool and measuring what I need to measure and scientifically validating that on an ongoing basis.
Yeah, because AI's training data can also contain biases, right? Because AI is being developed by humans only, right? So this is where the biases come in. Thank you so much for that point. Let's talk about data and metrics now. Do you feel data and metrics have made it easy for organizations to have better decisions on DEI or recruitment or promotion?
Look, whether it is recruitment, promotions, DI, data helps you make better decisions.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
given.
Yeah.
It's a question of, how well are you, first of all, how well do you maintain the data? How well do you use the data? And what tools do you use to use that data? And the fourth piece, which is also very important, is the capability, the competence of the person who's looking at the data, because many times the data is staring at you, but you don't know anything about it. I've always been talking about, last 15, 20 years, maybe more than that. Let's take an example of HR. The entire HR cycle, starting from hiring to retire, and it starts much before hiring itself, your engagement with the candidate and hiring and then training and all that stuff. You have various departments within HR that are doing it. So training department is separate and compensation is separate and all. They have lots of data about that individual, but that data doesn't talk to each other. Yeah. So you can actually make a history out of that guy, of that person, if you are able to interlink that data. But that's not happening. So I think data is a wonderful tool, but your ability to analyze the data is the most important. And I think the capability of people to look at data, stare at the data, and making sense out of it is a very instinctive one, obviously, but it also can be developed over a period of time. That is still one piece, I would say, missing, largely in HR. Because we always believe that HR is always going to be, very touchy-feely function, but data can tell a lot of things to us and use that to make the right decision. That, to my mind, I think we still have a way to go.
All right. I remember one of my bosses telling me that although data is unbiased, but the person who is reading is have all the biases, right? So even there, we are not bias free. So how we can actually use metrics or leverage metrics to kind of bring positive results in organizations? What's the right way to go about it?
Look, I think first of all, be very clear in terms of what is your big why. Your big why that you're aiming from an organization. See, organizations are not NGOs. They are working for a purpose. And largely the purpose is all to make money, for themselves, for the stakeholders and shareholders and all that. So look at that could be your starting point in terms of what is that organization going to be doing over the next 4 or 5 years, or midterm to short-term to midterm. And then start looking at what are those metrics that you've got to be looking at to ensure that the big why is achieved. I think once you have those metrics in place and keep them few, keep them hard, and review them on a regular basis, on a periodic basis, I think they'll keep telling you a story. Finally, it's all about, building a story. So data has to be put in metrics, and metrics has to tell you a story, and story will tell you what to do and what not to do. And I think and some of the companies have done extremely well, using data for decision making and metricizing a lot of things.
Yeah, and depends, at the end of the day, depends on how unbiased is the storyteller.
Well, see, again, as you rightly said, the story, when the writer writes in the book, you're going to be a writer yourself. So when you write a book, you write. And then you leave it to the person to interpret the way they want to interpret. So interpretation comes with the bias. And that's what is the biggest problem. Writing a story is not an issue. It is the interpretation of that story. That's an issue.
Yeah. All right. Well, thanks to my boss for telling this now. Thank you, sir. But let's get you in, Sushant, on this. Could you, tell us or give a glimpse of any 2 or 3 technological solutions when it comes to kind of eliminating biases at workplace, or driving better DEI at workplace?
There are multiple which are going in and coming in.
Your top 2 or 3 suggestions.
So let me go ahead and call out something which we very recently implemented, which is Ask HR. Okay, people are not always open to go ahead and ask some difficult questions of people. Yeah, but when it's on a tool, I'll just key in a note and I'm able to go ahead and put it over there, and somebody's able to go ahead and respond back. Okay, very simple one, straightforward. But by just removing the face, you're making it much more accessible, much more available to much more people, and are able to get ahead and get it across. Driving the adoption of the tool and so on and so forth, those are things which have to be built and driven, and you go ahead and make it happen. So that's one area. The second is you're making everything far more accessible. How do you make everything far more accessible to individuals within the organization? I think as long as we are maintaining our focus, assume there's a job posting which is going ahead, and if people in the organization believe, okay, it's going to be an open evaluation, it's going to be an unbiased decision, you'll have people applying. If people know that there are going to be biased decisions on a consistent basis, people will stop applying. Okay, you can go ahead and do a posting for the sake of going ahead and doing a job posting internally, but nobody's going to go ahead and apply for it, and ultimately you're having somebody whom you have identified, nominated to go ahead and take that position, or you go ahead and hire from outside. Yeah. So I think it's a question of how do you build it into the organization culturally. Technology can always support. I think we were discussing data and matrix. What gets reviewed gets done. Okay, and what do you review? If you have a matrix, if you have a goal, you're able to go ahead and review on that. Let me call out SHL as an organization. It's been called out, and it's documented that we're going to have 50% of our leadership as female leaders, whom we're going to go ahead and have in the organization. Okay, this year we're hitting somewhere around 36%, still going ahead and aspiring to go ahead and hit 50%. Now, the business relevance. As an organization, as long as you're able to go ahead and identify that the other side is also going ahead and changing, you'll go ahead and drive that data in the matrix. Okay, if the other side is not going to be changing, you'll possibly stay as you are, but it's becoming imperative. I think that's the point which Sandeep was going ahead and calling out. It's becoming imperative, whether you like it or not. If you're not going to do it, you won't have people applying to you to join your organization tomorrow. Let me call out from a technology standpoint, because that's an important area which you called out. How do we reuse data? Okay, I can be going ahead and doing one assessment at the time of hiring an individual. I have the data available with me. How can I make that same information available to the hiring manager that, hey, these are the things which this individual is great at. This is how you can go ahead and support him. You're able to reuse data over there. Similarly, the data is typically these data remain valid for about 18 to 24 months. Yeah. So how do you continue to use that within your talent management process in terms of if there's learning journeys or development plans that you want to go ahead and help out the individuals with, you can go ahead and set that up for them. So I think technology, if it's commonly applied and made available to everybody, that's where the benefit is going to go ahead and come in from a technology standpoint.
Yeah, basically using technology as an enabler, then rather than being totally dependent on it, because then we are losing the human touch, which is the foundational element of human resource. Right. Well, thank you for your viewpoint. A question from you, like you have been in the HR industry for so long. So how have you seen the evolution of DEI conversations at workplace from when you started till now, when we have technology, we are talking about technology and how it can drive better decisions at workplace?
Look, as I mentioned earlier, the DEI as a focus area came into being, I think, about 20 years ago. Yeah. When I worked outside of India, places like Japan, Korea and all that, you'll be surprised that they are behind us. Oh. Right. So India actually got into that bandwagon of, if I may call it that way, of ensuring that we have a DEI workplace, compliant or whatever that you may call it, much faster than many other countries. But yeah, the pace of that has increased in the last 7 to 10 years, maybe a little bit more. I'm seeing the biggest shift that I'm seeing is from being a mandate to an intent to a part of life. That's a journey that is happening, and pretty seamlessly the journey is happening in the last 7, 8 years. So from being thirsted upon that we got to do this without people realizing what is the importance, to becoming an intentional, to be intentional about it. Yes, we got to do it because we feel that there is something good, and making it part of the life, part of your life, is something still has to happen. We are in the stage between the 2 and 3 right now. I hope we'll get to the stage 3 very soon. But it's, as I said, there's going to be stage 4, 5, 6, 7. After that, we'll continue to evolve.
All right. So DEI conversations have now evolved from mandate to intent to being a part of life. We are ending it here, sir. But we do have a very special rapid fire round for you people. First question for you. If not HR, then what?
Finance.
Oh, wow, great. Are you interested in finance?
Yes, I was a finance person earlier.
Oh, great.
From education.
All right. So if you can share your personal routine that you kind of use to maintain a proper work-life balance.
Well, I get to office very early in the morning. 8:30 I'm there in office compared to the India standards. And I'm back home by about 6:37. So I spend a lot of time with my dog. Earlier it used to be my son. My dog is also my son. And read a book, listen to some good music. I think I've picked up good music now. So yeah, life is cool.
Oh, that's great. If any one book suggestion you would want to give to young HR people.
Why young HR people? Anybody, there's a book called Jack, Straight from the Gut. Because I worked in GE not only because of that reason, but I feel that a lot of it is about, while I said about data, a lot of it is also about gut.
All right, then do you have any fun fact or any talent that none of your colleagues know?
Yeah, I sing very well. Huh? You want me to start here?
No. I think we can do it later on.
No, I'm joking. I don't think there is any fun fact here. I'm pretty open with that.
Yeah, so but you are a good singer.
No. I'm just joking. People who say they are good singers are never good singers.
All right, thank you. Such quick answers. From you now, what's your favorite book or podcast?
Oh, favorite book, Principles by Ray Dalio. I think I really love that one, and I recommend it to a lot of people, my go ahead and coach or mentor.
All right. Now this is an interesting one. If you could have a dinner with any of a historical figure, who would that be?
Oh, dinner with a historical figure. That's a good one. Who would I like to have dinner with? I need to think that through.
It's a rapid fire, sir.
It's a rapid fire. I'm getting it. There's so many people whom I would love to have dinner with. They would be more living that you go ahead and I would relate it more to the people who are going ahead and living right now. So it's because when I look at people from living, there's some great stalwarts, like having a dinner with Ratan Tata. That would be something which one would really look up to, given an opportunity at any point in time. Having a dinner with Narayan Murthy, that would be a great opportunity. Having a dinner with Bill Gates, that would be a great opportunity. So these are the kind of people one would really look forward to.
And what's your one go-to stress buster habit?
Try and get into the kitchen as much as I can. I think that really loosens me up. I'm stressed, I get into the kitchen, cook something up. I'm absolutely chilled.
Now, this question is for both of you. What is that one place you both want to travel and is at the top of your travel bucket list?
Switzerland.
Mine is the Arctic. So there's a tour which one has been planning for some time. I need to go ahead and get it to work. So it will happen. It will happen soon.
So let's manifest from here that you're visiting Switzerland soon and you're visiting your dream destination as well. Many times to that manifestation. Thank you, gentlemen, for having this conversation with us. It's a pleasure to have you here. Thank you so much. And to our viewers, stay tuned for more such videos only on ET Studios, HRConnect in association with ETHR World. I was your host, Himanshi Tiwari, signing off for this episode. Thank you and stay tuned.